pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
O Lord, our governor, bless the leaders of our land, that we may be a people at peace among ourselves and a blessing to other nations. Grant that your holy and life-giving spirit shine down upon all who hold offices, especially this morning in Montgomery County, that they receive the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people, and that we as citizens accept our responsibilities to each other as fellow citizens, and that we all serve you faithfully and honor your holy name. In Jesus' name we pray.
Okay, first thing up on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the August 26th regular meeting, as well as the September 5th executive meeting. At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 25th and September 5th as presented. Any discussion or anything before the vote? All in favor of approving both sets of minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next up is the approval of claims. Jennifer?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
The accounts payable claims and allowance docket in the amount of it's different than the agenda, and I must have given you the total from the wrong page, Lori, sorry. $3,155,778,089. I'm trying to see what the difference, the difference is all of the payroll payments that we have made. So, anyway, that's the claims, and then the payroll to the employees was $354,814.79.
Okay, you've heard the amounts from the auditor. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes, or excuse me, approve the claims as presented. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? What else, Jennifer?
That's all I have for right now, just to, except for the reminder that the county tax sale will be on the 11th, which is Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Okay.
And that's in this room.
That is in this room, yes. And if anyone is interested in being a registered bidder, they would need to come 45 minutes early just to complete all the paperwork that's necessary. Thank you.
Okay, so if you're not doing anything Wednesday at 10 o'clock, bring your checkbooks and come and have a little fun. Never know what kind of deals you might come across. Moving down to department heads and the elected officials. Anybody have anything?
I'll add to the tax sale, there's about 100 properties on there right now.
Shouldn't be too bad. Everybody shows up and gets 5. We should have to take care of it. Probably. All right, nothing else. We're moving on to old business. First up is the West Central Solid Waste 2020 commitment. We tabled that at our last meeting, referenced some additional information. Dan represents the commissioners on that board. So anyway, I don't know if you guys have looked into it anymore, had any more thoughts, or if anybody had anything they wanted to say. The amount would be looks like if we agreed to it, it would be $66,717 for the year 2020.
I've not contacted, I failed to do so, contacted Jane Collison.
I see Don Mills is here. I mean, my comments at our last commissioner meeting was, I'd like some idea what the council's thinking here is. We got there's $1.4 million in cash down there.
That's the wrong number.
What's that?
That's the wrong number. It's $99,167.
And there's a plan for that?
Yes, there is. Right there is a five-year financial plan. If you'll look on page
Want to come
one.
up here?
Oh, sure. On page one, the reserve reduced, go down here in this column shows the amount reduced over the last 3 years. And I have another sheet here. The projected reduction of this number in 2020 is $101,909. Any questions?
So Don, refresh my memory on this, is you guys talk about there's cash reserves total, and there's
Yeah,
cash reserves per county.
And that happened over 10 years ago when West Central was charging each county $3 per capita per person. And so there was a reserve built up in West Central. And so if you look down on the sheet with the explanations, in November of 14, the board felt like that reserve was too much, so they put in a 5-year plan to reduce that. Now, each county before 2008 were being charged $3 per person, and so that number was lowered to $2 per person. So that all that money did not revert back to the general fund. It reverted back to what, and I don't like the term they use, called buckets of money. So these buckets of money reserved, Montgomery County has used theirs up. Putnam County had chosen not to use all those reserves, but I believe by the end of Putnam County is going to use $66,000 of their reserves, and they will be out by 2021. So all those balances will go back to zero. Park County has used all theirs up. So that's where that number that you're talking about comes from.
Okay, so our contribution at 66,717, do you have the number for Putnam, or Park County?
It should be, I don't know that I have that.
Okay.
It might be on here. Oh, yeah, I think so. 66,717 for Montgomery, 66,425 for Putnam, and 30,343 for Park.
Okay,
The council reviewed this and passed this budget last month.
so everybody's figured on the $1.75 per person?
Correct.
My only issue with this, as sitting on that board for 2 years, was, a strategic plan for providing services to the communities that are involved in this. You can make it look good on paper that you're only charging whatever you're paying per person, $235 a person. But our city citizens are still paying $30,000 for recycling
And that's-
curbside.
And
Other small communities have dumpsters that they need. The dumpsters we got now aren't enough.
then bring the commissioners to the meeting and have a conversation. I think 6 out of that last 8 meetings, there was no commissioner representative there.
Tom, I've sat on the board for 2 years.
I know, and I've got the minutes that says who was there and who was absent. Now, Scott Hessler, he's been, from the city, he's been doing very well. As far as that recycling goes, you know, it's public versus private. Greencastle's charging $10 per month or $10, yes, per month for recycling and trash pickup through a private company, and the city here is charging $15. So the commodities are, because of the issue with China, a lot of counties have quit recycling, or they're talking about quit recycling, but it's Johnson County that has stopped all the recycling. So there's some challenges out there.
There's some opportunities.
There are.
That's right.
Well, I can tell you too, the other thing that, and this is just a brief conversation with the mayor, is that we're gonna run into, or I shouldn't say we're gonna run into, is exactly what you're talking about, is the ability not to recycle. Because he told me on Thursday or Friday that he will not continue to pay for these recycling bins throughout the city that are being filled up by everybody in the county.
And we've had that discussion. I mean, you know, that's been a serious discussion. We've had problems getting enough people going for those meetings.
And you know, that's gonna, I guess that's, I mean, recycling's still good for what it does, but
Yeah, and I think there
It
have
used
to
to
be
be-
some changes.
yeah, it used to be, I mean, for an example, the city recycling curbside used to be done for free. Free of charge.
And
Because of what they got, but now
I
it's not.
really do have an issue, I mean, with the people of the county, because if you go down to Walden's there, those 2 dumpsters are always full.
Mhm.
Now, do we need to change those and move those out? Do we need to remove those from Crawfordsville High School and move those into a different location? Those are some of the questions that really need to be answered. You know, I don't have the answers.
When's the next meeting, Don?
September, next month. I believe it's the 3rd Wednesday in September. I don't have that
Okay.
right here.
Park County's writing check this year?
I think that, with that being said, meeting the 3rd Wednesday, so there'll be a meeting before our next meeting. This agreement says that it needs to be approved no later than October 15th. So I'm gonna recommend, I have a couple more questions, but I'm gonna recommend that we table this for one more meeting and see what we can find out at the meeting next Wednesday, I think it is.
I think the next meeting's the 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's October.
Oh, not till October.
October 30th at 9
I'm
o'clock.
sorry, yeah, I just, it's every month.
10 o'clock, sorry, no reminder.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm still holding a motion to table this for one more meeting and do a little more digging here and a little more question and answer type things.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Couple more questions I guess I have is Don, I know you said that a lot of times you've been having trouble with quorums and so on and so forth. But obviously, long-term plan, more importantly than long-term plan is at what point, it's obvious that I don't think this is probably going to continue to be the way to go forever.
But and I had a conversation with Dan a couple of weeks ago. My long-term plan and my short-term, or my long-term view and my short-term view of West Central solid waste are 2 different things. My short-term view is we should stay there because there's $999,000 there. And part of an ordinance in 2008 with the county commissioners, if Montgomery County leaves, all that money stays. So we would walk away with nothing. So my short-term thought is to stay there until that reserve is gone in 4 or 5 years. When that reserve is gone and there's no more benefit there for Montgomery County, then that would be the time to think about doing something different if so need be. Does that make sense, Dan?
It does, except for then if there are such buckets and
They'll all be gone.
Right, but if our bucket is already gone, then is there any, I'm not saying it's, if we're still gonna be pulling out of, if there's that much money
There's that
there,
reserve that we can pull out.
if our bucket's not empty, then what happens?
That's, if our bucket is, then, let's see, then we're paying $1.75 per person. That's our contribution.
The opportunity is to utilize the cash that's there to
Yeah,
put a long-term
that's right.
plan together, not wait till the cash runs out and then put a long-term plan together.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I've been to the meetings, I've said exactly what I'm saying now, so, you know.
And in 5 years.
You can't get that board to.
No, in 5 years, there will be $675,000. So, at that rate of reduction, what is the time to consider that?
Right.
That's my.
And then what, then the doing, not just the funding, then
Right.
the doing, what is the exit strategy is
If
doing?
that's what you so choose. The average cost per capita across the state in all the solid waste districts was $14.18 per capita. And ours is $2.35. So, that, you know, you can make ours $14. We want to put in more dumpsters, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's what so chooses to do. So that's where it is today. Those are my opinions, and that's like my numbers.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table. The only thing I see here, and we can talk about this later, is these numbers and try to figure out, Don, is the Putnam County fund, according to the very top, is 134,772.
Right, and that is money that they contributed in years past.
But the 2020 and 2021 contributions don't add. Is there still contribution in 19 to pay that's going to make that balance
You had
up?
56,000,
Okay.
what is that, yeah.
Well, 60, that's probably about right there. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Don, let me ask you a question. I don't know that I really understand
Nor
all of this, but, so you're saying that if we withdrew tomorrow and didn't do this
Yes.
for next year, then we would get how much?
Zero.
Zero. Okay, what if the same day Park County withdrew, how much money did they
It
get?
would be zero.
Okay,
So
so that means,
I've got an ordinance here, you know.
okay, I understand that.
Sure.
So what you're saying is that if we withdrew and Park County withdrew, Putnam County then, would they be the owner of the cash balance?
It would be, I don't know that it would be the county, would it be West Central, and when that expands?
Would there be any difference between the two?
I do not know.
See, that's why I don't really understand, I understand the position of West Central,
Right.
but I don't know how it really could be that way. That money was paid in by each county, right?
Right, and, well, I guess we'd have to involve Hendricks County, because they're the ones that's where a lot of the cash balance came
If they're the one, they voluntarily released, it. I've seen that
Right.
agreement. They voluntarily said, we're leaving,
Right.
and you can keep our money. But that money became owned by West Central, which is what? Which is a three-county cooperative.
And it may be going to 5.
Maybe going to 5. You see, I guess what I'm saying is,
I understand your
I
question.
hear this theory, and that's all I'm gonna call it,
That's fine.
and I am not sure I understand how that could possibly be the real legal answer. I've heard it, but I don't understand it because of the scenario I just mentioned. If it's really nobody's money, and two people pull out, it suddenly becomes, maybe we should convince the other two counties to withdraw, and then we get the money, and then it would be the Montgomery County Solid Waste District, and I bet you that Park County and Putnam County would sue to get their money. Because they would say, look, we paid it in, our citizens paid it in. So I call this an unusual theory. But maybe that is part of the problem, is I think that's created, I think that theory creates distrust. Because what I really think it means
It's way
is,
before my time.
pardon me?
It would happen way before my time.
I know it happened way before my time too, but I'm just saying that
I
it
guess
doesn't look like, if you're going to use this tracing theory on the way in and establish these buckets, and then say unless you withdraw, then that's not your bucket anymore, that's just crazy.
I guess ultimately the question would be for how long can we participate in West Central Solid Waste without contributing the 66,000 that we, instead of, what if we did not pay anything? How long is it before they say, hey, your bucket is completely empty and you're not allowed to provide, we're not gonna provide you with service? And whatever that date is, then we need to mark it on, you know.
I think some of those questions could probably be answered tomorrow. James should be here tomorrow from West Central.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, or to table, 2 questions. Who is the attorney for solid waste?
Yeah.
John Capri's, okay. And then number 2, the ordinance you keep referencing is what ordinance number, and is that our ordinance or whose ordinance is it?
No, it's Montgomery County Ordinance 2008-3.
Okay. Motion and a second to table this, again, this meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? 3-0. Moving on to the Highway Department, Jeremy.
We had several bids turned in, and due to some failure on our end with the specs, I'm going to recommend that we reject what was turned in. We've already re-spec'd it to put it out to bid again. So, had some measurement issues and.
Right. So at this time, I'm going to make a motion that we reject the bids that were accepted and have this rebid. I think it's, Jeremy talked to me and Jake both talked to me once this happened, and we realized there were some clarification issues, and I think it's only fair to everybody involved that everybody has the same, we're bidding on the same thing, and right now we're setting that that's not the case, so.
Is that why there's such a big discrepancy?
Partially, yes. And then, but the clarification on the wheelbase length was a big issue.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anything else? And you got the specs ready to go?
Right there.
Okay. All right, all in favor of rejecting the bids and for the 2020 three-quarter ton pickup, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? I'll take care of this under other business. So, actually, I'll take care of it under new business. All right, resolution, moving on to new business, resolution 2019-15.
The auditor has requested that we dispose of law books which are in the basement of the courthouse. And as you probably know, law books aren't used in much anymore. It's all digital research. And so this resolution does 2 things. It first authorizes that disposal. And secondly, it makes a finding that the books have less value than the disposition would be, so that she would be free to give them away, throw them in the trash, do whatever she wants. And my understanding is the judges have consented. They have acknowledged they don't have a need for it. So that's what the resolution would do.
This time I'd entertain a motion for resolution 2019-15.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? Yeah.
On the law books, are all 3 judges using digital versions now?
Yeah, and the prosecutors as well, they'll have access to that and a million times more information. But it was originally put down there because the law clerk was, and but the law clerk also had
It's just line
access.
item.
Yeah, access.
And once again, they were all consulted with to make sure that somebody wasn't going to come up next week and say, hey, I need that law book. All right, any other discussion? All in favor of resolution 2019-15 signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Moving on to 2019-16, and I'll let Dan explain it because he'll make it a lot clearer than I will.
In In 2016, you entered into a lease agreement for 303 Bedford Street. And it was a 3-year lease in which envisioned the raising of a home and the construction of a parking facility to assist in parking needs at the Bedford Street facility probation department. And in that lease, which you negotiated a option of purchase for $1 at the end of that lease, and it is now the end of that term. And so if you want to exercise your option to do that, you need to pass this resolution and then have Mr. Fullwetter send that notice to the seller, who I believe is ready to transfer it to you for $1, and we can get that finished up.
All right, at this time, I'd entertain a motion 2019-16.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second for 2019-16. Any questions or discussion above and beyond what's already been said? All right, well, I call for the question. All those in favor of 2019-16 signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 3-0 as well. All right, moving up is C, notice to bidders for the highway department. I think that the clarification was made already for us.
Yeah, and one thing we did do, we changed it from a 3/4 ton to a 1 ton now. So
All right,
that covered the difference in the wheelbase and specs for us.
okay. All right, so you've heard the explanation. At this time, I would entertain a motion to allow the highway to put out a notice to bidders for a 1-ton pickup. Looks like the bid will be due back on Monday, October 14th, no later than 8 a.m. Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Next up, under D, new business, is a Deckard Engineering and Surveying on-call time and material agreement.
Yeah, this is Jim Peck, I'm Montgomery County Engineer. Under the Cume Bridge, we have several large culverts that we are going to be bidding out in the near future. Rather than installing what's there now, we've actually done a lot of engineering analysis, talking to residents, talking about the flooding. So we're actually putting in culverts that are sized correctly and to a length that farmers can traverse their equipment. And also we're dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers and also Indiana Department of Environmental. As a result of this, we are getting in some additional property outside our normal right-of-way. I have met with a lot of the property owners and talking with them. We'll need to put together a right-of-way easement document for them to sign since we're going to be encroaching into that. So with Deckard Engineering, who've done all of the surveying out there for us, basically coming up with those exhibits and descriptions. And again, this will be paid out of the Cume Bridge.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. This time I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the on-call time and material agreement with Deckard Engineering and Surveying. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, there's no, the agreement doesn't have an insurance provision, and normally, even under on-call agreements, we require the consultant to provide professional liability insurance, general commercial liability insurance, and workers' comp. And what it says in the agreement under paragraph 12 is that this section is left blank intentionally under insurance, which I don't think that's what we want. The contract does contain an indemnification agreement, which says that if they are negligent in any manner, they'll indemnify us, but without insurance, that means that we would rely upon the financial wherewithal of Deckard, which we have no information about. So that obviously the general commercial liability would relate to if they back a truck over somebody, another worker on the site, something like that. And then workers' comp, the law in Indiana says that if a government doesn't make sure that its vendors have workers' comp, then you become the work comp insurer. And I defended Delaware County in a death case involving a tree trimmer once, and they didn't require workers' comp, and guess what? They paid, and then their rates went way up. So I would recommend that any approval of the agreement be subject to the addition of that standard insurance language we usually see. And usually we don't have this conversation because all the other agreements we have contain it, so I don't know why it's omitted at all. I don't understand that. And then, just a reminder, I know you know, but we also would need, we have that kind of uniform affidavit regarding E-Verify, nepotism, no business with Iran, they would need to do, but the insurance thing concerns me a little bit, and I wouldn't recommend that you approve it without that. So that's my concern.
So I can amend my motion to include Dan's recommendations to, whoever to make that motion.
Second.
We have an amendment to the motion to accept the agreement pending the changes that the attorney has recommended, which was the insurance as well as the E-Verify and the other documents that need to be presented. I guess my only question is so this is mainly for surveying work?
Yes.
Okay. That's the one thing I was a little confused about because we already have a couple of on-call agreements, so I was a little confused on another one, but I understand that. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, that's it. Other business. Either one of you guys have anything?
Well, the only thing I gotta say, tomorrow, Jeff Peters and Jim Peck, Gary Booth called and wanted to talk about the highway budget, some explanations or I don't know what he wanted, but anyway, he asked about it. I told him we would come to the council meeting tomorrow with a presentation, so we're gonna give a presentation on the highway budget tomorrow at the council meeting.
Anything else? Good. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second, we're adjourned. Thank you. Just to just one other note here, we do have an executive meeting